Okay, Happy New Year. What a
Happy
great
New
way
Year.
to start the new year, sitting in Sardi's restaurant in the heart of the theater district with three brilliant, talented women in show business. I'm so excited. I'll try not to gush, but I did a little research, and I honestly feel we're going to levitate soon. I mean, the table. By the way, a little sense of history. The table belonged to Vincent Sardi.
Really?
And this is family table.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh, I love it. Now I have to touch it
So
more.
here's to the ladies who
Wow.
lunch. Thank you each and everyone for being here today. I'm going to go around the room because I am sitting with Nancy Opel, Christine Pedi, and just Jeanine Tesori. I'm already hypoglycemic, so so just to recap, just a little bit, so everybody kind of brings them in a way of introducing you to everybody else. Nancy Opel, you have done 15 Broadway shows.
Mm-hmm.
You're now starring in Wicked,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the list goes on. I saw you in Urinetown, that
Mm-hmm.
you received a Tony nomination and many other awards. But Evita, Teddy, and Alice, I was out of town.
Oh my gosh, Teddy and Alice.
That was
I
it.
did Teddy and Alice with Len Cariou.
That's right.
That's how I met
I mean,
Len Cariou.
I totally forgot about Sunday in the Park, Anything Goes, Triumph of Love, Fiddler on the Roof. The last time I saw you
Was Fiddler?
was in a recording studio.
Oh, because we did that thing.
and we did the outtakes of the original score. And now we know why that was not the opening.
We did
And
kind of.
I don't know what I was
why.
doing there. I just did it,
Well, we were trying to be the daughters. It was hilarious,
Fiddler
but we were
opened
cute.
with.
So these are trunk songs from Fiddler. That
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they just
never knew
recorded.
there was a different opening than
It was
tradition.
about the daughters and the mother, right? Yenta
Mm-hmm.
and you were Yenta. I was Seidel. Right?
Sure you were.
We were all
the
one of the. We were
daughters.
all one of the daughters.
Yes.
And,
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all sang the daughters
And
parts.
it makes
This is
sense.
hilarious.
I wanted to say, but I go all over the place. I'm so sorry. And you can interrupt me anytime you want.
Well, I
But-
like to
but-
say that face says Seidel to me.
we were all kind of going.
And we were there for like an hour. But the funny thing is, it made sense story-wise.
Yeah.
To open it with, it just made sense. But then after, because we know what the opening is, it's one of the greatest shows ever written, and that opening is just,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that, you're just a fantastic singer, comedian. You are now teaching. You're a famous acting coach.
I
I have questions later for that.
I coach people all the time. It's kind of what I do. And interestingly, I probably have more clients coming with sides than with music, because people just don't know really how to
I want to
approach
get in.
that stuff.
I want to get into that because
Yeah.
I really want to know about that. Christine Pedi, I just love you so much. I went to see your show
Thank you
at
for
54
coming.
Below, the Christmas show business.
Snow business.
Snow business,
Snow
excuse
business.
me. It's so fantastic, and I had the great pleasure of sitting with your family.
Who loves sitting with you?
Oh, I loved it. It was such a great night. And when you are like a Renaissance woman in radio. You do Sirius. You have a couple shows. We've done those.
Yeah.
Forbidden Broadway, Forbidden Hollywood.
3 years. Yeah.
3 Broadway shows. What am I missing?
Not too much.
Snorkeling into TV.
Somebody came up to me once and said, "Did I just see you on an episode?" I went, "Nope." And he went, "You were on an episode?" "Nope, never been on an episode of anything." "Nope,
Yes,
didn't
you
see
have.
me. It wasn't me."
Okay, so I went to your website,
Yeah.
and this is what. You did this.
What'd I do?
Comedic actress, drama desk nominee,
Yeah.
Sirius XM radio personality,
Yeah.
lady of 1,000 voices,
Yeah.
award-winning cabaret performer, which you are, YouTube sensation,
Semi-station. That's what I call
Semi-sation.
myself. A semi-station.
dead soprano,
Oh, Dead Soprano. Yes.
because
I
that
was
was
Bobby Bacala's wife, and I get hired to play a mob boss's wife, and I thought, oh, I've made it. The only one who gets killed. All right, but he loved me so much he couldn't defrost my ZD for like 5
Oh
episodes.
God, did they bring you back?
Well, when Tony Soprano went into a coma, he was in this dream state where he was going into a house, and his dead cousin was outside the house trying to get him to come in. And I went, "It's the house of death. It's the house." If he goes in the house of death and I'm not there, you know what I mean? They didn't ask me to be in the house of death. He ended up not dying, so it didn't matter. But yeah, it was a good part because I was the only. My husband was the only character who loved his wife and who
And they
didn't
killed
cheat on
her.
his wife.
Oh my God.
He didn't kill her. She got killed in an accident,
Yeah.
and he was devastated. And
Yeah.
he buried a wedding cake at my grave on our anniversary.
Good Lord, that's Italian.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby Bacala.
Yeah, Bobby Bacala.
Is cod.
Okay.
It's a kind of
I have to
fish.
the last one is Cookie Baker, but we can talk about that later.
Seriously, that should be the first. It's
That-
very important.
Jeanine Tesori,
I want to get back to Cookie Baker.
Yeah,
but-
okay, we will.
okay.
I have so many. I get so overexcited, but I'll try not to gush. But I am one of your biggest fans. I think maybe not, but because you have so many. But you are one of the most important musical voices that we have today in our time. Not just Broadway, and just to go into some of the things that I did miss, like your operas. Blue and with the lion, the unicorn, and me. I mean, so gorgeous. Besides 5 Broadway shows, Tony nominations, and received, of course, the Tony for Best Musical for Fun Home with Lisa Krohn. And that's an important, first time 2 women, right? Or all women team?
That's the first time to all-women writing team.
Writing
won.
team, yeah. And now what is it? Was it?
Oh, now it's been.
Now it's opened up.
Yeah.
But I'm so honored to have you here. Thanks for coming. And what I love, I have so many questions about the beginnings. And I read something that you wrote about pure music, because you have had. I mean, I love that How to Succeed was my first show, 1960. And you were a dance arranger. That was one of your first things, right? And you arranged other shows, Swing Time, Dream. And then you were conducting,
Yeah,
like at a young, like 19?
I started at 19 when I switched from pre-med to music. I know, right?
Can we talk about that?
It's a
What
you know,
happened?
well, there's so many doctors who are great. I once had a doctor, and he was such a great pianist that ultimately, and I could, my carotid artery could be just, Zimming. He'd say, so when you play the Ravel in the left hand, I'm like, what about this? What about this situation? And I had to leave because he wanted to talk about music. Oh, wow. But so many, math and music and science, they
because you
go
started
hand in
music,
hand.
you were 3, you're like little Mozart.
Well,
You were playing piano at 3?
Yes, I was playing piano at 3, and
I read that you wrote your first sheet music down, you were like 7, you had a good mentor and teacher.
Yes, I had an amazing piano teacher, and he taught me what things that I use today. My mentors have been so incredible, and I'm sure we've all had them, about not judging music. And I was just reading something here today about the wrap-ups. The worst thing about, the thing I hate is about the best theater of this and this,
yeah.
and I think, can we curse on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
You know, I mean, that whole thing about comparing stuff, we've all been part of things that I think to be pathfinders.
I mean, the prejudice about certain...
Just comparing art.
Yeah,
drives
yeah,
me
Which is like the
and the
10
best
best
of.
whatever.
10 best whatever. I
And then they have a 10 best
stand it.
of this last decade.
I know.
Come on.
I mean, that
And you
kind
go,
of stuff.
really?
I also, as women, you're so, I don't know what it's like because I'm with 3 great actors, and with composers, we spend so much time in our room, and then they let us out, they feed us, and then we go back in. And that idea that you are looking like, being up for the same parts and all those things, it's such about comparing. And so when those lists come out, I always have a little of just like, don't read them, just do your work. Keep your head down and do your work.
Yes, I've said it before here, but it keeps coming up, and it will always come up, I think, in our popular culture. That all the great people I worked with, Sondheim, Hal Prince, they always said, or in some way in conversation in our work, it's all about the work
Yeah.
and the process and how you get there. And sometimes now the process is cut. I've talked with directors. The process is cut short. So now we do some of the work in our bedroom for the actors. You know, you have to be prepared. We don't have the time.
Yeah.
But too much of emphasis is on the result of things, and it's been always that way in terms of when we learn acting. Right? You have to bring these young, great talents back to what is this about? I mean, just simple things, and not the result. Not go for the highest, the end. You know, it's like everything is the one-note samba.
You know, the work is it's funny, and I just want to say one thing to you because I'm such a huge admirer of not just your work, you know, but that's for everybody here. But there are certain women I look to and I think, okay, she's doing it. I'm going to do it. She's in it. She's going to do it. And what you've done collectively. But I went in. There's one interview with Michael Bennett that's at the library, and everybody should go. He did it with Bob Avian, and the interviewer didn't show up. So, and it was right after Chorus Line, and they were just talking to each other. And it's one of the only live interviews that he did, and he talks about the process of putting that together and the months and the months. And he walks that through in such a way, and I thought, some theater doctor should write a prescription pad and give that thing out to everybody who thinks that, you know, it goes like this. It's like the hours and the detail and, you know, some things that were, I'm sure, not fun to work with that kind of rigor. But I saw it months and months ago just because I'd heard it was there. And it gave me such respect for the way that things were. Yes, I
remember seeing that, and it was an odd thing. And they did their interview with each other.
And they're like, they're smoking. What should we talk about?
Remember smoking?
All right.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So, but this is what I had such a great time reading as much as I could that I didn't know. And and we all know this, when you work on a show, I mean, it's years.
Years.
You respect the work enough, and you took yourself to Montreal and rented
a lighthouse.
Lighthouse before you did Violet, right?
Yeah, I wrote Violet there. I was a music director and a conductor, and there was a certain point where I thought, I don't want to shine other people's shit anymore. I want to be able to own. The only way to really, I feel like one of the hard ways about having a family is passive income, that you can sit and put your kid to bed and your show maybe will go on. So there's teaching and writing, and so I spent all my money, and I took a year, and I thought, you know, I had to learn how to use time, because it's different when you're in rehearsal and someone says, show up at 10. That unstructured time, well, I thought, if it undoes me, I'm not meant to be a writer.
Yeah.
Because so much about it is getting up in the morning and thinking, okay, I have to write this by then. But no one's asking me to show up for rehearsal. It's very, very different.
You were in a lighthouse with your 24 hours a day to yourself.
Yes,
I left with as
exactly. And I thought, well, if I eat Butterfingers and roll on out of here 300 pounds, then I'll know that I don't use time well on my own.
But then when you went back to your family from the lighthouse, mother's home, from the lighthouse, did you then realize that there was a structure and a process that could work in your regular day-to-day life?
Yeah,
in your New York City life.
Super single, and I'd made a real mashup of my life. But there are still times, it was in 1994, and there's still times in during the day, and I have that feeling of like, what did I do there all these years later that I can carry through, about being aware without being obsessive about that time is the only thing we run out of, and we have to use it well. And especially when someone isn't telling us what steps to take,
I have a hard time with that.
It's very hard for us to do that.
Just to have the discipline to get up. I have to act like some mornings when I don't really want to get out of bed, that I have to go to class.
Yes.
And that someone's paying me. I have to psychologically set that tone, you know.
Right.
And to do it. And then once I'm up and out, it's fine.
Yes. I think this is endemic of culture right now, in particular, because I was just listening to a book, because it's the easiest way when you can close your eyes and listen, to a book called Undistracted, and it's about all of the distractions. And it's not about this is my cell phone's fault or this is MSNBC's fault or whatever. They said what the distractions are is you trying to dissipate the pain that is in your life. It's about trying to dissipate pain. It's not about enjoyment, because none of us get really that much enjoyment out of going through Facebook, but it does help us dissipate pain, which I thought was really interesting. So I can't remember the author's name, but I thought it was very interesting that he says we pick things up to avoid the pain of our lives now. And but you say, oh well, I should be working on the sides for tomorrow for that audition. Oh gosh, I just wasted an hour doing this thing, and I really should have done this other thing. And then we get mad at ourselves for doing that and waste more time.
Right.
Well, this brings up to mind too. When I ventured out to write a book with someone, and I have writer friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. He did that so well.
I know, he was like,
And I said, do you have to clean the whole house before you are able to sit down and concentrate? And
Well,
she
clean a
said,
whole block.
she said, yes, I do. And she's she's written 7 books. And I said, it's like, and I thought, all the fear that comes up in our work and our sensitivity, it's like, I'm old enough and I've done enough to know that, and I've worked with younger students, that I try to help them. I can help them sometimes more than I can help myself in terms of the inhibition, the fear that comes up. And to stay on top of that, to be clued in to what's really going on, that's a skill.
Well, I mean, eating is the
Yeah.
the first thing that comes
By
to
the way,
mind when
bon
you get up and go to
appetit.
the
Speaking of-
refrigerator
Bon
and why.
appetit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
Thank
say
you.
that again, Christine.
Eating.
Right.
And I remember sitting at the computer, whatever I was doing, or at my desk doing whatever I was doing, and I remember saying, God, I want a bagel. Now, these are not things I eat often, bagels. Who doesn't like a bagel, but it's not a thing I eat often. And then I stopped myself and I said, What? What? Why do you want a bagel? Why did you say that? What? And then I stopped and I rewound to the thought I had before that and the thought I had before that and the thing I did before that, till I got to the thing that maybe it had something to do with my checkbook.
Oh my
You know
God,
what I mean?
You got to the source.
That you got to the
Yeah,
source
wow.
of it. And honestly, if I did that more often, I'd know why I get up and go to the refrigerator. That's the first procrastination distraction that I think anybody can identify with. But I remember I often ask people who are writers in particular, when do you write? And because everybody, you read about the guys who get up at 5 a.m. and they have their coffee and they go to
that's
their
so
shed in the back of
annoying.
a country home. And
I would like a shed.
right, you know what I mean. But you
I
know
would
what I
like a
mean.
she shed.
And then they write until noon, and then they go walk their hounds or something. But you know what I mean.
Everybody ought to have a hound.
But I have a friend whose wife wrote chapter books for teenagers. And I said, how did she work? Because she worked from home. And he said, 9 to 5. 9 to 5, at home in her house, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. And that's what she did. She treated it like a job.
love her.
And that's what she did.
I mean,
Listen, I give a lot of respect to people who write, because I know I do not have the discipline for that.
But when you have a discipline, you know what to do. Do you have a ritual? I was thinking about rituals. When you're not in the mood, but you have to, find a way, but not a superficial way, but to really kind of get back to the beginning. I know in the dressing, a lot of my actor friends, you get to the theater, if you have a place to go, and then as you start the makeup and the thing, it's all of a sudden the character emerges, even though it's repetition. Is that a preparation for you, or do you need certain, things?
It depends on how long I've done it.
Yeah.
Because now I'm 14 months in at Wicked, and honestly, just putting that makeup on, you just go, there she is. Now I'm ready. I mean, seriously, because it's
right.
How long does that take?
It's fairly bold. At this point, 15 minutes.
Oh,
okay.
It took me
Great.
an hour when I first
my
got
God.
that. I was like struggling with my eyebrow and all of that.
But that makes sense. You've done all the work.
yeah,
You've heard that.
yeah.
It's like you all of a sudden kickstart.
And I also feel, I'm serious about my work when I work, and when I'm on stage, I'm serious. you can't break me up on stage.
Except when you sing upside down.
Yeah, well, except I didn't laugh then
Did
either.
you do that?
But I only did it once.
Can
and
you
it was
tell them?
Yeah. This was
Because I love
was
that
Honeymoon in
show.
Vegas.
Oh my God, I love that show so much.
And they decided, sort of mid previews, that I would, because I was dead for the whole show,
Yeah.
that I would die but go to heaven. I said, I really
Two
have to
dead
go.
Sopranos
I really
sitting
just have
here.
to go to heaven. I have to go to heaven. And they said, yeah, you're right, you do. So the day that they decided to teach me how to fly
Oh God.
Oh
was
dear.
the day of Peter Pan Live.
Oh no.
I am not kidding. The day
Were all the
that-
harnesses in use?
The day that they taught me,
There were no harnesses
they
in
sent
town?
their one guy that was left because all the other foys were at Peter Pan
Oh my
Live.
God, you got the alternate foy? You get the faux foy?
Foible.
Oh,
I did. No, he was a nice fella. Don't get me wrong.
No.
He was. He kind of looked a little bit like. Oh my gosh! I hope he doesn't like write me a poison pen letter. But he sort of looked a little bit like a young and more good-looking Weird Al Yankovic. That's kind of what he looked like. But he puts me in the thing and he showed me how to do it, and I practice flying and all of that. And I go, oh, that's great. Okay, we're not going to put it in tonight. We'll put it in tomorrow. Great. So the next day. I literally had like a half an hour to do this. And it was real simple. They just hoisted me backstage up into the flies, basically, and I waited. And then I went zzz, and then back out the other way, singing.
Of course. Why wouldn't you be singing?
The way that he had me set up, my arms were in front of the wires. I started going out, zzz, first time I do it for people. My hand sort of ticks the proscenium, and I go like this. Betsy, this is my head, of course. Betsy loves you. Go be happy. Betsy loves you. In the middle of the stage, well, of course, they didn't want to zing me back up, so 22 seconds left in the show, and we had to stop.
Oh, jeez.
Bryn O'Malley, who was playing, she was crying because it did look terrifying. I'm sure it looks terrifying.
And you're on stage though. You're not in the audience.
Oh no,
You're
no,
not-
you
you're-
can watch it.
you
It's
can-
on, go on YouTube. You can find it. Seriously,
You should do it
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
you should do it right
That is
now.
terrible. I mean, I hide behind little notes or I teach, but what you guys do when you put it on the line, it's that is the respect that I.
Flying without a net.
It's I mean, even
it
if you're
was.
not doing that literally, I feel like you guys do that. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I've never wanted it, thank God, only because I don't have the talent, but I also do not have the courage to go out. I mean, I've seen all of your work. I don't have it.
Jeanine, there
I
are
don't.
times.
But
there
I
are
did.
times-
You did a great job when I saw you play and perform at the Library of Congress.
Oh, that I can do because I have
it's-
music and
yeah,
I have
you
my
have-
glasses and I have my like.
you know what you're doing.
I'm not really here. I'm not really here. But what you guys like the without a net thing? No way.
But
no
aren't
way.
there times that you're standing backstage and like maybe you hear the overture and
Yeah.
go, why did I ever say I
I
would do
know.
this?
Oh my God. No,
It happens
yes.
all the time. That
Yeah.
feeling of
That's good to know.
why did I
have-
say that I would be in this?
I have an indelible moment when I transitioned the first time I did a cabaret. In other words, the first time you do a show where you break that fourth wall and you are really there in.
You're playing you, not someone
yes,
else. Yeah.
and
that's
you don't
a
even
double.
know how to play you yet, and you're looking at eyeballs, and it was like a club that's no longer there. It was on the west side, and I'm standing, and it's my first time, and I have like 5 musicians because I'm very insecure instead of just a piano to start. It's a big deal, and I'm standing there, and I hear my name. I hear the announcer say, "And now, Donna McKeck," and I remember that feeling, sinking and going, "Am I crazy? Have I lost my mind? What am I doing here?"
And then you enter.
And then I go on.
I mean, I feel like that moment is to me the only thing I can think of when I first started working and I was, 19, whatever, in my 20s, and I was subbing, which is
We were
I
conducting?
conducted 3 shows in a row at the St. James, and the first time I subbed there on Gypsy, and they hadn't spent the money to transpose the score, so you had to it was a nightmare, and I worked really hard. And at the same,
they hadn't spent the money to transpose the
some
score
of the
for what,
charts
the new
were-
Mama Rose or something.
So,
Who sang
no,
it?
for parts of the whole score, they did some work on it.
So
and
things
you
you
had to-
just scribbled in.
Yes. So I did a lot of work, but at the St. James, if you've ever been in that pit, that pit, and I think it's still the same way, makes a sound like in Spam-A-Lot when the dungeon closes, and it goes ka-chung, gong, 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 gong. And I remember thinking, run, 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 run now. And then the viola player, who I loved, she leaned over and she said, the last 9 people didn't do so well. Good luck.
Oh my gosh.
Ba, 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 ba. And I was like, sweat. And
my
I thought,
God.
this must be sort of what it feels like to be on and I'll never do it again. It was so scary and thrilling.
Terrifying.
But, that feeling
And
that
you did
do
great,
that.
I'm sure.
I mean, I
You
did
pulled
well
it
enough
together.
to be invited back, but
Okay.
it was, I will never, that was so long ago, and I remember that panic of leave,
Yeah.
the fight or flight kicks in. Go now.
I was doing Anything Goes up in Lincoln Center with Patty. And when I joined the show, they said, okay, Hope Harcourt, the debutante. And, could you second cover Rena? And I went, sure, what the hell?
Don't say it.
Oh, yes, it happened. Patty went off to do a pilot, I think. So Linda Hart, who was playing another part, also moved up. She does one show.
Linda
and
Hart's in
gets
Reno?
sick.
Oh dear God.
And I went, you are kidding me. I am doing this show. It was a Wednesday matinee, right? And I said, oh, I just got dressed in a fog. I knew the show. And I also knew my other part, And then I'm standing back there like with Howard McGillen going, what am I doing? And I said, you had a perfectly good life. You had a perfectly good life. Why did you say you would do second
Oh my God,
cover?
there should be a book called
my
Why Did I Say
God.
Yes? And there's all these books about don't say no to anything.
And
It's
how
like,
much
why did
extra
I
money did
agree?
you get? You know what I mean? Like,
$1.50,
You know what I mean?
you know.
Yeah, because sometimes you do that to
Oh,
be
my God.
responsible. Like
And I
I'll
did
be
almost
responsible.
the entire week.
Oh my God.
Oh wow.
But the best part was I walked out to that thing and I'm singing probably, I don't know, I get a kick out of you. I get a kick every time. And I look out and Jerry Zaks is in the audience because he was shooting a movie or something, happened to be in the neighborhood and somebody said, oh, Nancy's going on. So he was there too. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Now, Christine, you're so spontaneous on stage. I can't imagine anything throwing you or making you, because that's what you do so great.
I've done mostly these satirical reviews and stuff, so I haven't done a lot of book musicals.
But has there been any moment in time when you went, what am I doing here?
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Well, Forbidden Broadway was deceptively hard. It looks like a bunch of crazy people wearing wacky wigs and just popping on stage and singing and what have you. But every number was costumed with a wig and a dress and jewelry and gloves and shoes and that there were 20 numbers in the show and there were only 4 people. So you're in essentially every other number and sometimes more than that. There was this Disney number when Times Square got cleaned up, and it was somebody dressed up as the Beast, someone dressed up as Belle. Brian Batt was the Beast, Donna English was Belle, Tom Plotkin was Lumiere, and I was Mrs. Potts in a great big teapot.
Of course you were.
Now, I had to leave early because I had to get ready to be Lilias White in The Life. And the joke was, they and the big be depressed, all about how Disney has turned Times Square. And I'm supposed to walk out as Lilias White in The Life like a streetwalker and say, what are you doing in my neighborhood? Get out of here. You just screwed everything up. Just go, So I go into the wings and we had a new dresser. I dropped the teapot And I told him, I said, I like to step into the dress, have it on the floor, and step into it, and put my hands through the arms,
She went the other way.
through the little spaghetti straps, because this was a spandex thing with a little pouchy stomach, in it. And I knew if you put it over your head, it would spin around and knot up and gnarl. And I said to him, want to step into it? He was so nervous, and I don't blame him because he's working his butt off. There's so much stuff to do. And so I drop the teapot, and he has it over his arms, like ready for me to for me to put over my head. And I'm like, oh, I put it over my head, and sure enough, the little pot belly that's tacked into it spins around, the spandex gnarls up, and it ends up going, little spaghetti straps fall around my waist like a tube, like a life preserver.
Oh,
all right. I got to be on, and there's 3 people on stage, and the number's over. Pedi press, da-da. And I said, my rule is, you can go out if your head and your genitals are covered. It doesn't matter with what.
I have that
but
rule
you
in the
can go
morning.
out if your head and your genitals are covered. Well, my head wasn't covered and my genitals were not covered. I mean, in a costume. You know what I mean? I had on, what did you say?
I have that rule in the morning.
Well, I have that rule on stage. and the theater-going public is the better for it. Trust me. And I looked, and I was in my underwear with no wig, and I said, well, I can't go out. And he's sweating and trying to roll it up and trying to pull it down and I said, take it off me. Just put it down.
Start over.
And just shake it out and shake it out. And I put my wig on. Now there's silence outside. And they're on the stage and nothing's happening. And all of a sudden, Donna English, looking like Belle, goes, goodbye. And she just wafts off because she was done. And that was, I mean, what are you going to do? Have a nervous breakdown? It's not brain surgery. It's ridiculous. So I had to, because he was going to have a stroke. He was going to have a stroke. I had to save his sanity, and I had to I had to be grown up about it.
Sure.
And it was, sorry, I got the flu. Not the flu, the cough. And I never get the flu, but I was a lesson. I really realized it didn't kill me. Nobody died.
So what did you do?
We just got dressed very slowly, and I came on when
did
I
it the
was
right
ready,
way.
when my genitals and my head was covered. And it was a long time. But I couldn't panic and overinvest.
Well, a minute is a really long
Long
time when you're stage weight.
Right, that's a stage weight.
Okay, so
dog ears.
I have the
that's a lot.
longest stage. In all the shows I've done, and different kinds of shows, because everybody that I worked with were professionals, there were, things, there weren't a lot of times that things really went wrong or stopped a show. But there was, when I was doing Can in London at the Strand Theatre, one of the oldest theatres, they were like, this is one time that it really, the show stopped, and not in a good way.
Oh, dear.
The designer, they were great. He built a set that was made of steel. It was made up north, Manchester or something, and it was a gorgeous set that moved from stage left to stage right, and it became turned, and it became rooms and everything. And so I'm on top. I'm doing at the end of the show, like 20 minutes. I'm on top of this set, and I'm singing a song, and it's moving across the stage of the Strand in that theater because it's so old. The stage wood couldn't take it, and it stopped.
Oh, dear.
And it was like creaking, and then it creaking along, and I'm going, what is that sound? I'm singing, and then it stopped in the middle of the stage. And then I'm up there, and then the music stops.
Ooh. Oh.
And I hadn't done that much cabaret by that time, so I kind of was waiting, and then I went, well, it's not television. There's like an uncomfortable laugh, and I went, Mr. Ziegfeld, Mr. Ziegfeld. I'm trying, and I said, anybody there? There was nobody there. They were over the whatever computerized thing there was. I was up there alone, and I just started talking. I don't
Riffing.
remember what I said. And then finally, it was the most horrendous because nobody was there. I went, stage management? Anybody?
Oh God, that
It's
is
so weird. They
There
didn't
was
say-
no-
They didn't make an announcement or
weird.
something.
No,
I thought you were going
and
to
then
tell me
nobody
that the
said
steel
anything.
set collapsed and
I
that that's
thought
why there was
that's
no
where we were
music,
going
that the
to.
orchestra
No,
had
but I'm
to
always
get
down
No,
for
up.
side
and
adventure.
nobody said anything, and I was stranded on top
God,
of
that
a
just,
set.
even that
And you
makes
couldn't
me
even
so
climb down,
nervous.
of course.
I couldn't climb down.
Oh my God.
So then I'm talking, and I went, well, this is what happens sometimes. And I'm just talking, trying to be friendly and
Friendly.
And I was so upset. And then a stagehand clumps on with this big ladder, a big ladder, because it's, I don't know how many feet, it's twice the height of this.
With everybody
ceiling.
watching.
Everybody, audience is like, I guess they're fascinated by what's going to happen now. And so he, held the thing, and I have all these skirts on,
Oh, God,
and I have to
God.
pick everything
My
up.
stomach is
And go
And
down
I'm
the line.
going
Yeah.
down, I'm backing down
Can't.
the stair, and I'm watching, and because we've never rehearsed this. And I get down, and everybody, of course, people are going to applaud
She's
and
still
everything.
alive, thank goodness. Yeah.
And I got off stage, and I was just, I don't remember any talking about it. And everybody was mortified, mortification. Okay, so segue, and I thought, did I dream that? Was that something what happened?
Well, I think there is a dream state that you go into because you're asking people to come in, sit in the dark, and go into a suspended place.
They
and
will
they'll-
go with you, right?
they'll-
Pretty much
they'll-
anywhere.
They really will go. And
So this is like a year, maybe 2 years later. I'm in New York walking down the street, and this woman says, I
no.
was there.
Oh, my
And I say,
God.
excuse me? She said, I was there the night that the set stopped on the Strand stage. And I went, oh, thank you for reminding me, because it really did happen. Oh, I'm sorry, I just hit my...
Your microphone.
Yep.
Well, also, you
Okay.
talk about the cabaret and everything, and in a sense, I think that, it's a combination of when you do that enough and you become more comfortable with being yourself in front of people, that can help you in a situation like that. And I also
Yeah.
just think a certain amount of being in the trenches for long enough, that if you make the decision to say something, someone who's done it as much as you have, let's say, you make a decision to say something and try to work the room. If anybody gives you any grief about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can say, I know what I'm doing. Somebody who may be newer at it, not as good at it, might be a little more scared.
But I trust the
but-
audiences now. I mean, I go like a child's sensibility, like, take me, be sure of what you're doing, but I will go anywhere with you. I mean, they want to be there, right? That they're there, you can take them there. Like you kept saying, this is not political.
Yeah.
Her show is so funny.
One year I sang Mr. Grinch.
And it was.
And last year I said something like, this is not a song about politics, unless for some reason you'd like it to be. And if there's any kind of a subtext that you have, if it works for you, go ahead. And last year when I went, you're a mean one, mister, the whole room went Trump, And as a result, the next line, which was, you're a greasy black, you're mean one, Mr. Grinch, you really are a heel. You're a something black banana. I went, last year is when this happened. They had all said Trump, so I went, you're a greasy black tangerine. And then they loved that. They kept on saying Trump throughout the whole song last year. And because of the way I set it up.
Yeah.
And this year I set it up the same way, but they didn't.
They didn't?
Not quite as no. Last year they all said Trump. Every time I said Grinch, they said Trump.
Yeah, because they're upset.
This year, they knew what I meant, but they weren't as actively participating.
Right.
But they knew what I meant.
Yeah.
It was because of the way I set up the song. If I hadn't, they wouldn't. They wouldn't have had that subtext.
Do you know, I'm just kind of changing subject, but I wanted to, not because it's political, but maybe, I don't know. I think people get upset. I think people are really scared right now. I know I am.
Yeah.
So I'm more thoughtful about what's going on. But anyway, what was that night? You did a night at the Friars Club that I wish I had gone to.
Oh, the Blacklist?
Yeah.
My cousin Tom Pedi, who's in the original Guys and Dolls, he was Harry the Horse. He was in the original Death of a Salesman.
Oh,
He was the
yes, he was
waiter.
the greatest.
He was the original Iceman Cometh. He was in
Yeah.
all the movies as the bartender, and he was a beautiful man. I got to know him when he was in his 70s in Los Angeles, and we went to London many, many times, and I loved him. He was blacklisted. He was a righteous lefty.
Mhm.
He had all his friends were. He hung out with he hung out with Jack Guilford and Madeline Guilford, and he was a man who worked for, who fought for workers' rights and unions and
Yes.
the working man.
Mhm.
And he was blacklisted when he was doing Guys and Dolls. Jack O'Brien or Ed Sullivan, I can't remember which of them, columnists, both. They both wrote about him. One of them wrote an article how B.S. Pulley, who played Big Julie, saw Tom marching in some workers' parade and said some really stupid things like, "We don't have no commies in this," you know. And then he actually went on to be quoted as saying, "This guy's lucky he's in a play. Acting ain't hard. It's an easy job. You don't have to work hard to be an actor." He was such an asshole. But B.S. Pulley went to the theater, took Tom's costumes, and cut them, accomplishing nothing.
Ah,
Ernie Martin and Cy Feuer, who were righteous guys, who were really great men in that respect, they
Yeah.
said, I remember Merle Dubusky, the press agent, told me at Tom's memorial that the stage manager said to Ernie Martin, B.S. Pulley just cut up all Tom's costumes because he was in this parade and he's been accused of being a con, blah, blah. And Ernie Martin just said, "Well, let's get him some more costumes," you know. And I learned Cy Feuer, at his memorial, I learned that he was a musician and I think
Yeah,
a
trumpet
music
player.
contractor,
Yeah.
right, in the movies. And he had the first integrated orchestra, Silk Stockings was the first
Oh, I
integrated
thought
orchestra.
it was the Sammy Davis Jr. one. Is that true?
That's what they said
Wow,
at
I
his.
thought it was the Golden
and
Boy.
he integrated orchestra. I don't know.
Well,
you
the
know.
pit, the orchestra.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but, and then he said that they were out of town in Boston. I think it was Silk Stockings or it might have been Guys and Dolls. I don't know. But one of the, no, it was because one of the pit musicians was at his memorial and said that there was I hope I'm getting this right. Said that there was a invitation to the cast to come to an opening night party by some fancy people in Boston. And it said something to the effect of, "Collards need not attend," something like that. And Cy Feuer said, "Anybody who goes to that party is fired."
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
And so,
love him.
you know what I mean? When you have the power and you can use it, they didn't a lot of the time, but this guy did. Anyway, Tom was blacklisted. The theater was always good to him. It stayed with him forever. If you've ever met any people like Lee Grant and
Well,
Joan Copeland, it
one of my
stayed with
acting
them forever.
teachers, and Jack Guilford, I worked with, but I knew them, and he had, they had a
Yeah.
really hard time.
Yeah. And
And-
so I had at Broadway Con about 3 years ago, I asked if I could do a panel discussion on the blacklist, and I brought in Josh Mostel, Zero's son,
Yeah.
Jack
Mhm.
Guilford.
Yeah.
Joe Guilford,
Yeah.
Jack's son,
Jackson.
Lee Grant, Merle Dubusky was there, Kate Draper, whose father was Paul Draper, Kate Lardner Jr., Ring Lardner
Oh
Jr.'s
my
daughter.
God.
Mhm.
And
Is there a video of that?
there's the audio.
The audio.
And
okay.
Joan Copeland. And we got in this big room, and it was the other group was letting out, and I was setting up the dais, and Lee Grant was saying, "I don't know if people are going to come to this." The day before, this was January after Trump got elected. The day before was when he put the ban on the airport. And so it was so frighteningly timely. And when I turned around after setting up all the chairs on the dais and I looked, the room was packed. It was packed. There was several hundred people. It was great. Then we did it again at Symphony Space.
Wow.
And later on in the year, and then we did it a couple of months ago at the Friars Club. And it's important.
Yeah, it is. I
You
was
know.
glad to see that you did that, and you have that.
Oh,
recorded.
John Guilford's daughter Julie Guilford.
Mm-hmm.
She came to the one at the Friars Club and the one at Symphony Space. She was involved as well. It's these
You know,
people,
because
these
Jerome
kids, they've
Robbins
been
and
scarred.
Well.
Zero Mostel, right? They worked together after they had to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that must have been a difficult. And what did Zero say famously? Something about, well, we don't have to go to lunch.
No,
We have
he
we have the
said,
left.
"How you
that?
doing, loose lips?" or something like that
Oh
when he
my
came
gosh.
in. When he came into the theater.
But I think I said we have the left do not blacklist.
Hmm.
You know, and I mean it begs the question. You know, with the Me Too movement too. Do you ban someone's art because they were a bastard and a criminal? If that's the case, then we could do a lot of investigating and pull some of the great philosophers off the shelves easily. What do you do? I mean, I say about, Bill Cosby, yeah, ooh, rat bastard. Cliff Huxtable wasn't, though. You know what I mean? Cliff Huxtable had a lot of good things to say about family and what have you. And so it brings this question
I
up.
think in time, I don't know, in time, when change or things that come to the top and are revealed and it's important and everything, and there will find it's what do you call it, the level. And I think it has to be, it's all a part of it. I mean, the art, I mean, you can separate, I think, eventually. I think you have to see it for what it is, but I think change is painful, and now this kind of knowledge is painful to face it. And in time, I think it's the human condition to just it'll find its place, its equilibrium.
I am
I guess.
interested though when people do the wrong thing, what the reparation is.
Mhm.
Like, what are you doing after you move? People fuck up. People do the wrong thing. Those men, the men when we were growing up and we came into this business, what you had to fight. It was
Yes.
right, and so we want to make it different for our sons and daughters.
That's right.
And once the people realize the time has changed, what they were taught isn't the right way. It's immoral. It's unethical. What you then do once you know, like how you repair, where you put your money, where you put your time, how
And
you
education.
education. You
for
educate
people.
yourself. You be
Yeah.
humble. And I've watched some of the comedians, and I think, now that you know, are you kidding? You're still doing that thing. Make different choices, or don't. But then I'm not going to go. For me, I'm not going to. But look at James Levine. And are you not going to listen to any of those operas? I don't know. It's really a hard question, the art versus the artist.
Also, when people just get fired and sent off into the darkness when they've done something wrong, they're really not, they're just fired immediately. They're not taught, we don't set an example that when you make a mistake, you've got to make it right, that you've got to face the people that you wronged, that you have to sit in it and fix it. That doesn't happen as much.
It's
I
too
just
reactive.
watched Bombshell.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
see Bombshell? They say
Yeah.
that, Roger Ailes and what's his name? Bill O'Reilly got something like collectively $65 million. Meanwhile, the women got $50 million amongst all of them. And did it come out of Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly's pocket, or did it come out of Fox's pocket? What are they?
I mean, if it's criminal, that's what's really hard.
Well, if it's
When
criminal, that's
criminal,
totally
right. But the idea of how you move it forward, so that it's you give what you didn't get, and that goes for men in any gender. It's really about the treatment of human beings and some
seeing
people.
women. I'm binging on my Netflix Mad Men.
Oh yeah.
There's
I
so many
know.
seasons.
Saw it.
It's fantastic. It's
Mhm.
written well. The actors are great. I mean, did you see any part of that?
Oh God.
And that's the era. That's the era I came to New York, and I made a joke of it. But it was, I was raised. I'm a '50s girl who was raised to believe that women had to just deal with it.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm watching as I'm watching Mad Men, and I go, oh my God, I was one of those girls, and it's so painful. And I mean, I remember I brought this up at another conversation at this table about going to agents and literally running around at Louis Scher's desk twice, and out the door saying, okay, thank you, and I never I just kept moving, and he was chasing me around his desk.
Oh dear God.
Yeah,
Weren't you also I guess I don't expect that now. I did expect it when I entered. I'm one of 4 girls, and my father raised us as men to be tough. And so when people say, why aren't there more women doing what you do? It's like, oh, how do I count the ways to make sure that you stay curious, you stay humble, you keep your head down and you work, that you're kind, you learn how to make a business and all of that. But you're tough enough to do all of these things. But the expectation, I think, for this next generation is not to be running around
Yes,
trying
exactly.
to defend, and if that happens, to not be silent.
And they already give me hope when I meet young
Like your
people.
daughter at 29 is not going to be expecting I think.
Well, also speaking to authority, I think they have hopefully they're not as scared to speak to authority because of, when you had the kids after the terrible shooting, I'm forgetting, God
Parkland.
forgive me, because there's so many of them. I can't remember which one
You're
it was.
talking about Parkland.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. And, those kids, the one thing about that generation, when we say they're spoiled and they're this, you know what?
Mm-mm.
They just stood right up and said to their elders, no, I will not. No, I won't. And it was,
And then they deal with the ridicule, the constant ridicule since. Which is terrible,
good,
but true.
But okay,
and they're dealing with it.
That's too bad. But at least they started it, and they
absolutely, and they're dealing with constant ridicule, which I think is shameful.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
But speaking of role models, this is why I like this show so much, because it's a platform for women, but this will maybe inspire people just to be people again, and men and women and young students. And like when you, I loved reading about one of your role models when you saw Lena Horne's show.
Linda Twine.
Oh, that
And
was good.
she was
Linda Twine.
and she was one of out there at a time when
she was out there. She was one of the first women I ever saw, and to this day, I know her. We don't work. She's not working as much, but when I watched her on stage, and she's in front of Grady Tate,
conducting this great orchestra, right?
Conducting, and also there was something about her. I was 19 and watching her on stage, and
she was dressed as a.
She was really beautifully and
dressed?
simply dressed, and her authority was so quiet. And I had really been taught that authority has to be so sort of, in almost like a Toscanini tradition. And she was not that, but every eye was on her, and I thought, just clock it. Those moments that you clock someone and you think, people lead with fear or love. And she had mostly love. They were looking at her, and they feared losing respect.
Yeah.
Her respect. And I thought that, I just clocked it. I remember that's such a moment.
That's fantastic, because I just want to bring up in a relation to that, how when I first came, Jerome Robbins, I loved Jerome Robbins, and he was great. And, he was fantastic. Dancers today still, go back, and I work with the American Dance Machine. We recreate his work. And but when I came, it was like dancers just had this thing about we expected to be treated not with love, not from a positive place, but from a negative place, because you're a kid and you learn that dancing is like incredible. It's hard to do. You're asking your body to do unnatural things. So the ballet teachers, have the canes, and they hit your feet and your ankles and yell at you sometimes. So that was the whole style of choreographing, is to, and Jack Cole and all that, and Michael wasn't like that, but that was the school of thought. And I just thought, that doesn't work. I mean, that could never work with me. And if you can, what you brought up, if you can work from a place of loving and giving and generosity and earn the respect, then that's the way the work comes. But some people need that to be beat up. It's a kind of
the cruelty is so 1983. Like it doesn't work.
You know what? It's what it was when I went to school too. That's what Juilliard was.
What was that like?
Oh my God.
I got there in 76.
Oh God, the height of cruelty.
Was indeed the height of cruelty. Sure it was. And the thing that I take away from that, because I got great technique there, but the thing that I take away from there is actually freedom and learning how to be freely expressive comes from love.
Yes.
It's not trying to please the guy who's gonna, beat you over the head, because that's not where that comes from.
Yeah. So you have to isolate yourself sometimes.
Absolutely.
That's a training all in its own, isn't it? Getting through that school at that time.
How'd you get through?
You know what? When you're there with everybody else, it just seems like, well, I guess this is how.
Right.
I mean, I hadn't been to any other acting schools.
Right.
So I just assumed that's how they all work. Because when I see kids coming out of there, from 10 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever, and they're like, yeah, with la-da-da, I go, wow, it's a kinder, gentler place, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I think maybe they learned that it actually breaking the artist down first is not really the way to go.
Mm-mm.
I hate that. I hate all of that.
Yeah, well,
I hate it.
yes.
But the younger, I sound like I am the older generation, but the younger generation, it is changing. It is different.
But also you have to have, the thing that I've always loved about what you've done is that it's the idea of you can have discipline. Discipline, disciple means teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean punishment. And a lot of people mistake those two things. When they parent, when they teach, it's really about saying, be better. I want you to be better. I know you can be better. I see you can be better. And I love you. And I will love you more when you're better, because that's what all that stuff is about. It's that's non-conditional, but I see what you can do. Yeah. And then you just keep moving that person up. But that kind of stuff is, it really scars you for
be
life.
better than be best. But anyway,
right.
Be better, because that's,
It's grammar, I think. Might be what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll put this up. Just I know we have to wrap up. So what's coming next? Can you share anything?
Oh,
when am I going to see those operas?
Right. Well, Blue is
Glimmerglass
coming to New York. It hasn't been announced yet, but it will be in New York in the summer. It's going to the Kennedy Center, then Chicago Lyric at their smaller space. And Carolina Change is coming back from London.
Great.
Which
Congratulations.
I'm really
That's
happy
great.
about that. And I have a Met commission that I'm going to the McDowell next week to be terrified about. So that will be nice. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations on everything. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see more.
Yes, thank you.
And there are so many questions I have, but when you work with these collaborators, like with Tazewell Thompson on Blue and Lisa, and do you all work? You find a way to work with them that must be so interesting that you just work in a different way, or is it I don't even know how I'm asking the question, but
well, it's sort of like when you are working with directors and that person, he or she comes into a room.
It's all
or
different each time,
It's all
right?
different.
Yeah.
The tennis game is completely different. It's that they're coming
the
in
text
with.
comes at first, or will you kind of compromise? You go
I
back
work
and
from
forth?
such a story kind of, or from like, what are we making? Are we making a car? Are we making a pie? Like, what the hell are we making?
Yeah.
And how are we going to get there? And then it's just hours and hours and hours about what about? Oh, you feel strongly about that? You follow that. That's sort of the rule.
Okay.
Someone in the team follows something, and
That's great.
and and so then we'll go. But usually it's the idea, because shows to me are like buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Great foundation. You know what you're after. You're willing to fall on your face for it, and then just build it. And then be willing to change. In previews, I cut like mercifully, because the audience comes in, they're your last scene partner. If you're not laughing, it's not funny. The way that it's not funny, as you guys know, is a mystery to me, and the great comic timing that the three of you have. But if people aren't laughing, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So don't pretend that it's funny. They're listening. I hate it when people say, don't worry, they're listening.
Oh, no, they're smiling.
They're smiling.
Yeah, no thanks.
No thanks.
This is what I
Need a laugh.
No thanks on the smiling.
This is what I miss about going out of town anymore. When you have to open a show in New York,
Cold.
that's got to be
God.
for the creators, but also for everybody, right? It's just
I can't
the best
imagine
songs were written out of town, right, in the past.
But there's no out of time. I mean, that's the thing that you lose. I'm not on any of the social media anymore, except one, so I can spy on my daughter. But there's no privacy anymore. I can't go and fail at something because someone will write about it, and then it's out there.
It's
And
out there.
I don't begrudge anybody, but everybody self-publishes their thoughts.
Yeah.
So they pull something out of their ass as a comment, and then they do this because they have opposable thumbs, and it goes out there, as opposed to before that you had to wait. You would be able to hide in the nooks and crannies. So
Jeanine, really, it's like nobody. You really can't listen to anybody. You really have to be, not
I bring in three
reactive.
or four people to come in and say, be brutal and not, use the language you're going to use when you talk to your husband or wife or partner. Use that language so I can hear what's behind it. Don't do that. But not for everybody, because there are more people, I'm sure, when you're in new pieces and they pull you and they want to help or
Everybody
tell you
wants
how
to help.
fix
Right,
it.
right.
And I think there's another thing that's different from the old days. Remember Jerry Schoenfeld and all those guys?
Yes,
The old gentleman producers.
Yeah.
Who were actually people.
Yeah.
They were actually people, and they actually cared how you were.
Yeah.
And not corporations and not,
corporations.
Yeah.
conglomerates of.
It's a very different thing to try to work with producers who are people and work with producers who aren't corporations.
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah.
the corporate line does not often coincide with the artistic line. Sometimes it does, but
Well, that's the great juggling act of commerce and art on
but
Broadway.
boy, oh boy.
It's,
But boy, oh boy, but those old guys. I mean, I remember when I was doing Sunday in the Park with George, and Jerry Schoenfeld came up to me and goes, "Do you think we're going to make a single dollar on Sunday in the Park with George?" He goes, "We're doing it because it's great."
Aw.
But
That's a very good impression.
yeah, but yeah, I know. If I just had the suits and everything, yeah. But yes, I mean, and there's not many people say stuff like that.
No,
Not
I mean
producers.
Oscar, David Stone will say that. There are.
so you
some
have
people,
your few
George
people
Wolfe.
that you
Yeah, I bring in a
respect.
few people
And you've
who can
worked with
just have great
like Oscar.
design minds.
Did you,
Yeah, Oscar, Tony,
Yeah.
George Wolfe. I
Tony,
bring
George
George C.
Wolfe.
Wolfe into
You've worked
everything.
with him 3 times. Wow.
I love him so much because he will also. We had a rule when I worked with George because I used to call it Sunday in the Dark with George. I would go and I'd be like, just tell me. And then we had a rule that he had to say good 5 times.
Oh,
good,
my
good.
God.
And then I would be like, okay,
right, now we
okay,
can go
I'm
on.
talented. You think I'm pretty? Now,
we
bring
can
it,
go on,
bring
yeah.
it. Like, let's
I
get back in. But just to sort
That's
of,
right. Love works.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, we're winding down. I know you have a very important appointment. So I'm gonna. This is the ladies who lunch. I hope this is not a superstition for anyone. We're just gonna say I want to thank you. Cheers, skål,
Cheers.
l'chaim,
Tea and
Cheers.
water.
shin shin.
Cheers.
Thank you. Happy
Cheers,
New
cheers,
Year,
cheers.
everybody.
A pleasure,
Thank
an
you so
honor,
much
a
for
privilege.
being here. I
Happy
want to
New Year.
also thank Dory Berenstein, our wonderful producer, and this fantastic crew. Thank
you so much,
You
guys.
do a great job.
And Sardi's.
Sardi's.
Yes, who are we sitting
Thank you,
under?
Vincent.
No.
There's me. Eyelashes.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
Can't see me. Anyway, thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
I just broke the fourth wall. See, there's no fourth wall here.
We did well.